Well, preventing depression, in my opinion, begins with emotion education. I think that it's a good idea for everybody that is about to have a child in their life to familiarize themselves with the change triangle. Because even when parents love their children with all their heart, if they don't understand emotions, it's very easy to unwittingly create excess anxiety and shame and guilt. Now, anxiety and shame and guilt, which are the core emotions, are important, and they're adaptive in small amounts, right? Shame tells us when we're not doing something acceptable and we're not behaving, our personality or our character isn't adaptive in terms of getting along in our groups that we need. So when we have a little shame that our parents create by telling us, for example, it's not okay to run around naked, or they create some shame when we refuse to share our toys, they're trying to civilize us. But when we are shamed for who we are and what we feel and what we are passionate in life, right? When we're shamed for our sexuality, like being gay or being transgender, if we're shamed because we want to play music and our parent wished that they gave birth to an athlete, if we are shamed because we feel frightened and we're told as a little boy that we better not be a sissy and we better man up, we learn to block our core emotions, and then we can develop in childhood and teenage years and adult years depression and chronic anxiety. So one way to prevent depression for the long haul is to educate everybody in emotions. And I also think that emotion education should happen quite early on in elementary school, and certainly the change triangle could be taught starting in high school. I wrote the book, It's Not Always Depression, to substitute for a full emotion education until it's actually taught in our schools. And when you write about emotions, it's kind of tricky because you can't think your way through an emotion. Emotions have to be experienced viscerally. And so in writing about emotions, I've tried to create experiences that help people see what it is like to process an emotion in your body and to allow the emotion to be expressed through fantasy or through releasing of energy. And it's hard to explain intellectually without giving someone experience of that. So in the book, It's Not Always Depression, I share stories from my practice that are very heartfelt and evocative to give somebody a taste, like you're a fly on the wall in a consulting room, able to see what it looks like to process trauma and move from disconnected and depressed states into core states of emotion, and then processing it all the way through till you come out the other side feeling much, much better. I also wrote an article that's very accessible called It's Not Always Depression, Sometimes It's Shame, which tells the story of a man named Brian who suffered from a shame-based depression. And those are precisely the type of depressions that I see quite often in my practice. They are created by continuous squashing of one's authentic self with shame that the child uses to stay inward and protective. And it serves a purpose at the time. It protects the child from being repeatedly humiliated or abandoned emotionally or abused because the parent doesn't like the way that they are expressing themselves. But over time, what started out as emotional protection has a grave cost, and that cost is in depression and the loss of vitality and the loss of being able to receive pleasure in other people and the world around. So one of the main ways I think we can prevent and ease and heal depression is through an education of emotions, which I've tried to provide in an easy, accessible form in the book, It's Not Always Depression. And I hope each and every one of you reads that book and practices the exercises or just learns what emotions are all about, because they're nothing like you think. And certainly until I was 39 years old, I had no idea what an emotion was and what it was for. And now that I do, it has really made a difference in my mental health and the mental health in people that learn the change triangle. So I'm so thrilled and so passionate about bringing this information to you.